The courtroom was still, the only sound the occasional shuffle of papers and the soft hum of the ceiling fan above. Keanu sat upright, his shoulders square but relaxed, the kind of posture that came not from defiance but from peace. His lawyer, a quiet but sharp man named Elgin Porter, leaned in. "They're going to push for the max," he whispered, eyes scanning the bench where Judge Valerie Maynard had just returned. Keanu nodded once. He didn't flinch. Not at the thought of jail. Not at the idea that the world might now paint him as something he wasn't. Over the years, he had grown used to people misunderstanding him. Paparazzi photos, twisted tabloid narratives, people mistaking quiet for secrecy, and humility for guilt. But none of that compared to the feeling he carried now that the justice system, a structure he had quietly supported and admired, might fail someone like him. Someone who had never tried to break the rules, but always tried to follow them. He glanced toward the back of the room. An older woman sat there, small-framed, wearing a lavender shawl and dark sunglasses. Her name was Mrs. Hollis. He had met her only once, when her house had caught fire 2 blocks from the downtown cafe he often visited. Keanu had been the one to help get her out. No cameras, no reporters, no big headlines. Just him quietly breaking a window and helping her crawl through to safety before the fire department arrived. She was here now, silently rooting for a man most people still didn't know beyond the screen. The district attorney, a tall man with a sharp suit and sharper tones, stood. "Your Honor," he began, "this is not about celebrity. This is about accountability. Mr. Reeves may be admired by millions, but admiration does not equate to immunity. The evidence shows trespassing on federal property, refusal to identify, and withholding of relevant documents under a federal investigation." Judge Maynard's face remained still, her fingers steepled under her chin. Elgin stood in response. "But this isn't a case of rebellion or disrespect for law, Your Honor. This is a case of mistaken identity. The documents in question were sealed under national security. Mr. Reeves wasn't trespassing. He was following orders. Orders given to him by agencies that now, for reasons we don't yet understand, refuse to acknowledge them." Murmurs floated through the courtroom, whispers of conspiracy, of cover-up. Keanu looked down at his lap, hands folded. Judge Maynard spoke, her voice even. "Mr. Reeves, I've reviewed the statements. The federal agencies have denied knowledge of the operations you referenced. The documents presented are marked classified but unverifiable. This places me in a difficult position. Before I render judgment, is there anything you wish to say?" He stood, slowly, gently. He wasn't dramatic, wasn't theatrical. He didn't ask for music to swell or for his lawyer to object. He just spoke. "I'm not a hero. I'm not asking for a pardon. I've made peace with what might happen here today. But if we've come to a place where doing the right thing quietly, without applause or expectation, gets punished, then maybe it's not just me on trial." Paused. "There are people who risk more than I ever have: single mothers, immigrant workers, veterans who never made the news. They face injustice every day, and no one listens. I don't expect special treatment. I only ask that you look beyond the evidence and see intention." Silence. For a full 10 seconds, the room didn't breathe. Then, a sound. From the courtroom doors, a commotion. The side doors opened, and in stepped a tall figure, uniformed in dress blues, medals shining, papers in hand. General Alicia Bram, head of special operations for the Department of Defense. Her presence stunned the courtroom into a cold hush. She walked briskly to the judge's bench, whispered into the clerk's ear, and handed over the files. Judge Maynard took the documents, her eyes narrowing as she began to read. More silence. Keanu blinked, for the first time, genuinely surprised. Elgin leaned toward him. "They came," he whispered. 20 minutes passed in review. 20 minutes in which the entire room sat in frozen anticipation. Then finally, the judge looked up. "Mr. Reeves," she said slowly, "these files confirm that you are operating under a level 4 Black Directive issued by Strategic Command. Your mission, your presence on the facility in question, and the materials you carried were part of a covert humanitarian extraction from a compromised war zone. Further, your refusal to speak under oath was in compliance with an NDA still held by the Department of Defense." The prosecutor's jaw clenched, the air knocked out of his sails. Judge Maynard closed the folder gently, and looked back at Keanu. "I've reviewed your full classified dossier. You are not the man the world thinks you are. You've given more to this country than any headline will ever reveal. It is the ruling of this court that you are cleared of all charges. This case is dismissed." Gasps. A collective inhale of disbelief and respect. But Keanu didn't smile. He simply nodded and whispered, "Thank you." The judge looked at him longer than necessary. "I hope one day your full story can be told," she said softly. He offered her a small, tired smile. "Parts of it already have been," he said, "just not in ways anyone notices." He walked out of the courtroom without fanfare. No press hounding him, no entourage waiting outside. It's the old woman in lavender, sitting still on the bench. As he passed, she placed her hand on his. "You saved me," she whispered. Keanu smiled and replied, "You're the reason I showed up that day." And he meant it. To be continued in part 3.